No, not at all. I don't think so.
Then if you place the camera here, it may you get less desk and more of.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. Should we start? Hi. So thank you for having me. Thank you for we have fellow polymaths and Mr. Gauhar, Raza and Sanjay Rajoura. I briefly introduce myself. My name is Mr. I identify as water simple songwriter and I do some direction, but that is stay limited to my music videos as of now. But and I'm very honored to be sharing the stage or the table with two very brave wellness thinkers because of the issue that Mr. Raza has intrigued and invested his thought on. It was great intrigue to me because of how epistemic vigilance requires a lot of epistemic fortitude and stamina, and that is an attempt which Mr. Raza has been trying to pursue in most of his life's work. He's a poet, a filmmaker, and an author, amongst many other things. And Mr. Rajoura, who is a very brave voice of politics, and I tried to say, you might know him from SC Democracy, which was a very, very brave attempt. So, if I may introduce the topic of our discussion. Across society, there are five key social technologies which have drastically impacted the world. In my reading of society, there are time, language, money, religion, and science. And of course, there is governance, but I am personally on the fence about that. Now, what we will be trying to discuss and what we try to learn, we try to be learning from Mr. Raza and Mr. Rajoura is on the lines of how is this dialogue, what is this dialogue between how religion in itself stems from an idea of dialogue, because if there would have been no Bible had there been no Torah, and there would have been no Quran had there been no Bible. So in certain ways or form, religion itself somewhat propels and perpetuates to a sense of social dialogue. And in that regard, I haven't had the pro scholar that I am. I haven't had the chance to buy his book, but I was lucky enough to go to the table of contents because it is available outside. So he goes about very interesting questions. The first chapter starts with what is science, and science, as I know it, as I learned in the sixth grade, was answering the question why. And we would also like to learn what he supposes how he frames what science is, and how essentially all myths, or as J.S. Mill very rightfully puts it, every false statement has an element of truth in it. Just by, even if it is something wrong, by the contemplation of the falsity of or refutation, as Karl Popper finds the logic of investigation as the core of refutation. Also, it's how social dialogue then becomes a process of assertions and refutation. And what is this then? What we'd like to know, what is the relation, which is the last chapter? What is the relationship between science and religion? So there are two contrasting points on that, in my opinion. One is that of how it may be supposed as if religion dissuades science in terms of like some form of fundamentalism or some form of conformity is practiced through curbing investigation. That could be a plausible proposition that one might adopt towards understanding the relationship between religion and science. And the other is that how, which a lot of from the table of contents as I draw, is what Mr. Raza talks about, is about how religion really feeds curiosity, feeds the question of the origin of man, the origin of universe, and the Lord. How religion and how religious axioms or supposed axioms, then give us the groundwork, the foundation upon which we think and discuss. And there has been a long history in our country of intercultural conferences and dialogue, which is something which seems to be at a point of erosion. I'm very happy that you guys are organizing this talk. With this, I will introduce and Mr. Raza, as a fellow alumni, I'm sure the bricks and mortar of this institution is very happy to have you back. And with that, I open the stage to you. And give you much of life to share your opinions on.
Thank you, and I'm honored to be with him, but I'm also honored to be here for two reasons. One, that this is my alma mater, and after a very long time I have come here, and I have forgotten a lot of things. Not only that, but IIT has changed a lot. So has world, and so has India. Yeah, in these 40 years, everything has gone transformation, and these transformations are very stark, and they hit you badly when you visit a place after a very long. So yes, I am elated and I am very happy that you have given this honor to me to be here. The second reason is that the book is not yet out. It is only being booked at the moment. So it is not out in the market. And I'm so happy and honored that you are the first ones to get it. So it's a very happy moment for me here. That in an institution where I have studied, the English version of the book has reached first. It's only on 11th of next month that it will be formally released. Sanjay is a good friend, not because I know him a lot, but I know his views. And therefore, yes, we are काफी मौसे बहुत मौसे. Anybody who doesn't understand Hindi?
We have people. There are
How do I translate chor chor mose?
Anyway, when I was growing up, and believe you me, that I was also a child at one point. But yes, I was. And like any other person, and if I ask you that, did you ask your parents or your elders the question, where have we come from? Or who has made this cosmos? Or what are stars? Is there any power which has made whatever is around us in some form or the other? I'm sure all of you would have asked this question to your elders and parents. And the normal answer in a normal family is that God has made everything. Allah mein, Bhagwan, God, Yahuwah, maybe Atom. So it's a simple, beautiful, elegant, very flexible to understand that there is a power that has made everything and that decides what happens on earth and what happens in society. And it's very understandable. But then, I'm sure some of you must have asked, who made Allah? then you are told, "Bak bak mat karo." Bahut sawal puche. That's a normal. I also asked this question. One day I came back from school. It's not that this debate started at that point of time, but in the school we had a period where religion was taught. And we were taught that God has made in great detail. In 6 days, this whole universe, and then on 7th day, it rested. It was God was very happy with whatever did, or whatever he did, with capital H. So I came back and I asked my father, and I was very fortunate that my father was complete atheist. My mother was a practicing religious Shia Muslim. And he said that answer to this question you will get when you will grow up and you can decide what you believe. But I don't believe in God. And his answer was that I believe that human beings were born or evolved and they made God. I couldn't understand. Of course, this part of the answer I just couldn't understand. But the other thing that he said is still haunting. He said that in the name of God, once you believe Him, everything is just. And he pointed out to the wires. Electricity was a novel thing during that period. He pointed out towards the pole outside the house and said that you can hang yourself there in the name of God. You can kill anyone in the name of God. You can burn houses in the name of God. And in the name of God, you can help somebody. And you can feed somebody. And you can help somebody to cross the road. Both these things are just in the name of God. And this answer stuck. But then there were more complications as I started growing. The larger family was basically Muslim family. In Aligarh Muslim University campus, there were fundamentalist organizations, very strong. Progressive organizations were also strong. I was getting some inputs related to Marxism and communist movement and earth freedom movement, and I was reading somehow best of the writers, poets, and the question that were repeatedly raised was this, that you are an atheist because your father is atheist. And when I started exploring, then science told me very clearly that you need to define things precisely. Whereas in literature you have a lot of liberty. In science, V and S are two different entities. Velocity cannot be replaced by speed. So there was this urge to define things and find definitions, even in literature. And then I encountered a lot of my elders claiming that our religion is extremely scientific. So what is this happening? There was a lot of confusion about it. That what science is and what is religion. Can I call what is religious as science? And can science be defined as an entity which is different from religion. So there were problems right from the beginning. And some of them were almost unsolved. So you started reading. That is what you do. And search and hunt things from here and there. And quotation. Come across Einstein's quotation that science is without religion. This, that. So once I started hunting for definitions, it became more difficult. But I kept on searching the answers to what is science. One simple answer that you get is from observation, data collection, analysis, hypothesis, this, that. That is the normal definition you get in a textbook. But that really doesn't satisfy a curious mind. So I went back to the literature and I came across some of the best minds when I joined National Institute of Science, Technology and Development Study. And during this period, Jan Vigyan Jatha, major program was also being organized when we got out of IIT Delhi. We were involved in organizing this massive program where in 40 days in 1987 we touched about 5 crore people. Packages were designed, this, that, all those things happened. But certain questions kept on going. I had no knowledge of Adam Smith, etc. But then went back to Marx, yes, Lenin, yes, because I came from a communist. So Adam Smith I had. But then I found a definition there. But then also I had to go backwards and try to find a definition which was a good definition in Aristotle, where he says that he proposes the theory of cause and effect. Nothing can happen without a cause. But then before him, Buddha also had said something which is very famous and which is in the air, that don't believe in anything just because it has been handed over to you through your teacher, guru, or it is written in scripture, or most of the people around you believe in it. But test it on the anvil of your rationality. And once you find it acceptable, then use it for the benefit of you. It was a very good, impressive definition of rationality. So digging went on. And I realized that if you go backwards, then after Aristotle, Al-Hasan probably gives the first definition of what is scientific method. And he says that Al-Hasan al-Haytham, Al-Ali, Al-Hasan, his name is misspelled by most of these scholars, and you get so many spelling errors. But basically his name is Allah. So he says that when you make a claim, then consider yourself enemy of the claim. And if you hear any claim, then consider yourself as enemy of the claim, attack it from every angle, and when you lose, the battle, then accept. That is the only way to reach the truth. So this is considered as first definition of scientific method by most scholars. And then you come to Adam Smith, he defines it in terms of technology, and he says, he adds element, saying that now we do not need a God to explain any phenomenon or supernatural power, and we can understand things, and that is what science is. Then you come to Marx, who says that opposing forces, in order to have a change, you require opposing forces, and these opposing forces in the nature. Once you understand, try to understand them, and you reach a law, then it is science. So dialectics for him controlled the nature, dialectics for him controlled the society. Lenin again added to it, and then you have Popper. I'm sure most of you know Popper, and probably more than I know about Popper, what he said. But Popper says something very interesting when he proposes that a scientific claim inherently has to have ability to be proved, and gives a very simple example which all of you probably know, that he says all swans are white is a scientific claim, because if you find a swan, black swan, obviously it can be proved wrong. But go back to another story, which at least in northern part of India where I grew up, every child is told when you're growing, that there is an old woman weaving yarn sitting at the moon. चांद पे बैठी बुढ़िया चरखा काटती. So all of us. Now, as per Popper, this is a scientific claim. Because once you go to moon, पता लग जाएगा है नहीं बुढ़िया. But slightly change it. Add another sentence to it. There is a woman sitting on moon, and when you go to the moon, then she'll vanish.
Floating version.
It's not a scientific claim. Right? Because it cannot be proved. So, these definitions, I found that they are emerging from within the discipline of science. And over a period of time, right from the Buddha's definition of rationality to Popper or Kuhn's description of how science progresses and paradigm shift that he talks about, all these definitions emerge from within. So I have to search now for the other. Because I also had, 10. No, 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Fine. Okay. Fine. So, the problem was that self cannot be defined without the other. Now, what is this the other? when a lot of religious people around you are claiming कि कुरान में सारी नॉलेज, वेदास में सारी नॉलेज, साइंस तो वो बता रही है जो पहले ही हमारे यहाँ है. So there is everything there in these books. And our religion is very scientific. So how do you resolve the problem? So I thought that one can probably create a category of extra science and put all the religions in this category. So what is common between these religions? It's only after identifying what is common between religions that you can think about putting them in one category. And that took me back to the myths and superstitions of various cultures, right from Africa to China, India, Japan to southern part of America. And I found that over a period of time, these myths and superstitions have been designed to answer the same basic question of where have we come from, which I and you have asked as what runs the universe, who runs the society. And when I started looking at these, especially the myths of creation, then I found that if you put them on a timeline, then over a period of time, the same myths have traveled to various cultures, and as society has changed, the myths have also included new elements. As the society became complex, the myths also became complex. New elements were added. In the initial myths, you do not have an idea of one single god. When monarchy comes, then you have an idea of one powerful who runs the entire universe. So one had to go back to all these myths and see what kind of changes have happened over it. So I came to the conclusion that the major difference between science and religion, if we call it, we put them all in one box. A lot of people say that religion doesn't have logic. Science is logic. Religion is no logic. I think religion also has logic. But the logic is based on something very different. The basic meta question of science begins with why. How? Whereas the meta question that every religion asks is why. If we ask, let's take a very simple example, I don't have much time. Let's take a very simple example that if you ask this question to anybody in today's world, that how day and night occurs, people will tell you Earth is round and it spins on an axis and therefore day and night. Now, how does that happen? Or why it happens? So let's begin with why. The answers are same. Let's go a step further. Why these celestial bodies spin on an axis? So somebody may have a little bit of knowledge of physics and say that because of conservation of momentum. So simple, beautiful, elegant answer is still भगवान की मर्जी है. But begin this question with how. And when you reach the limit of your knowledge, then you just can't say भगवान की मर्जी. It's gone. Then you will have to say either say this that I do not know, or say that I'll find out. I'll hunt for the answer. And when somebody asks you what has happened during those 10 raised to the power minus 32 seconds of Big Bang, then the answer is that we do not. The research is on. We have created CERN reactor, and maybe new generations, coming generations, will find the answer. So the basic question that the two ask is, but there are many other differences. I'll talk about one difference and then stop. That in religion, when you try to find something new or change it or try to prove something new, then it gives, it results into an upheaval. It results into a massive crisis. You can't say Ramchandra ji was not born in Ayodhya. If somebody picks up a research project and proves that Ramchandra ji's mother had gone to Janakpur because during that period went to your maternal household and there while giving birth and prove it, what will happen to you? If somebody says that no, it was optical illusion, Muhammad Saab never split the moon. Nobody can split the moon and prove it. What will happen? There will be a crisis. You will be outcast. Jat bahar. Right? And maybe, patwa. Right? But in science, you can challenge anything, the biggest of the scientists. And science progresses only by challenging what the previous generation has said or concluded or has found. So either by challenging that or trying to prove through some other method the same thing for Einstein. You can't say again, I have found E is equal to mc square on math bonkers. Einstein has already found this equation. But if you say E is equal to mc square was wrong, it has to be E is equal to mc square plus x. Then next Nobel Prize is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raza. So, if I may give my short, brief understanding of what I understood from your talk, which was very intriguing in every way or form. So, in a lot of ways, we talked about how Aristotle conceives God as an uncaused cause or a thought-thinking thought. And as your father once hinted at, it's like a creation of creation and the like how men have essentially created God. Nietzsche would say we killed him. John Lennon would say that it's a concept through which we're measuring our pain. The essential core question that, in my opinion, is very intriguing, that I believe is subject to further inquiry and discussion, is on the lines of how interest, identity, and institutions, then which are something that exist within science as well. It's not as if physics could very well be a religion, or because of certain fundamentals that it adheres to, and logic even for that matter. Logic, as much as we call it, like as we say that it's like these are principles of thought and completely different. In that regard, there's this very interesting book I came across, Scott L. Pratt. He talks about how the very four principles of logic can be wrong. In the sense, an apple is an apple. Apple and oranges are two different categories. But the fact that apple is not an orange and orange is not an apple makes them the same. Which is something in the principle of identity which is completely refuting that one common denominator that is linking both of them together. Now that apart, and then we talked about how there is this. He cited it with Buddha in investigation, like how you should use your faculty of reason and all the faculties at your disposal, within which somewhere as thinkers of literature, humanities, and different vocations of inquiries. One thing that we must acknowledge is there is an aspect of social choice theory which Amartya Sen points out, like rationality is premised on the dissemination of information that will be subjected to. And that dissemination and how religion in itself plays a platform. It plays a very important role. Why I find it to be an important social technology is because it does play an important role as a platform for this dissemination of information. Now, within which there is and this gets back to the idea of how there is rigidity and flexibility, how religion, like essentially, all religion essentially preaches this belief upon your own self, belief on the inquiry, belief and how and it claims to have attained that point through that inquiry. And so in a lot of ways, religion can very well be a point through which it can further the dialogue or it can shun it. Okay. And now if I may ask Mr. Sanjay, and how do you feel about the book? Like
So the book is not out.
yeah, but yeah, like the discussions of, if I may, could you then now give your sense of thoughts about the concerning questions?
So I have a couple of things to add to what Mr. Raza said. First of all, I'm very glad, and it's also a very good thing that the humanities department in IIT is talking about science, because most of the engineers, they're not scientists. Yeah, I am of a firm belief that science is about having a critical mind. It's a way of knowing things. And for example, if you are trying to study history, you cannot study history through belief. You have to study history through scientific inquiry. You have to look for evidence. And most of our life that we live every day, it is evidence based. Today, you use Google Maps and it tells you it will take 40 minutes from here to reach Ghaziabad or Gurgaon. So you calibrate your time accordingly. And this is the evidence. This is, you can't say that, oh, I believe I will reach there in 5 minutes. You won't reach there in 5 minutes. So the world works on evidence. And so much so that even in the most regressive societies, the justice system depends on evidence. In our courts, in Hindi films it is written, Kanun Sabut Mangna. Sabut science Mangna. That means even the justice system acknowledges that evidence is extremely important. When it comes to belief, one thing that I fundamentally have a huge problem with, you all know Harari has said a beautiful thing that human beings are the most intelligent species, but the intelligence also brings in delusion. Right? And we are not the first species to inhabit this planet. Forget about the entire solar system. This planet. And we have been here for just a couple of lakh years, 2 lakh, I believe. And the Earth has been, the universe has been there for almost 14 billion light years. So, if there is a God, it waited for so long for human beings to create it. And it was supposedly created in 7 days, as Mr. Raza said. Before human beings, for example, there were dinosaurs who walked on this planet for millions of years, I believe 65 million years. Okay. And Carl Sagan has said a very fundamental thing, that extinction is a rule. Every species that walks on this planet has to go extinct at some point of time. But it is human arrogance and this arrogance comes out of delusion, which comes out of the intelligence, which believes that this entire mela has been created for human beings. So there is some God sitting there who is, it's like you want to live in a one-bedroom apartment and God has created an entire city for you, right? And we are the most important thing. But the fact is, if tomorrow an asteroid comes and hits Earth and the entire species is wiped out, as happened with dinosaurs, nobody in the entire context of the universe is going to bat an eyelid, right? Forget about the planet. Even if this roof falls, all of us die. It won't matter to anyone. Forget about God. So this arrogance that we are the center of the universe is baffling. And one of the reasons for this arrogance is the belief system. And it's I think it's a cycle. That belief system gives rise to religion, and then religion consolidates the belief system. And belief system always keeps on saying, even if you are going through a tough time, now look at the flexibility of belief system. Even if you are going through a tough time, there is a God who is supposed to take care of you. Oh, God pariksha le. I mean, God doesn't have any other work to do. Why do I have to? And look at it from the sociological point of view also. The amount of suffering that we are witness to in this world. As George Carlin has said, if God were the CEO of a company, he would have been fired. It's a bad job that God has done. And so this human arrogance is baffling because in the context of the universe, we are insignificant. We are not able to reconcile with the fact that we will be dead one day. We are not accepting death as the end. Death is the end, just like you will cease to exist, just like you were not there before you were born. And this truth about human life we are not able to accept, and which gives rise to all kinds of belief systems and afterlives and many lives after that, and there is Swarg and Nark and Jannat and those and all that bullshit, which I don't believe in at all. But the third problem that I have witnessed as I have moved more and more towards rationality and science, and you have to see why WhatsApp talk about Marxism. Why I think Marxism is a very very important theory, because Marxism for the first time gave a scientific template to understand societies, to understand production, understand distribution, and to understand working class rights. It gave us a science. Belief, on the other hand, it gives us leaders like Hitlers and Trumps and Modis and all these things. These are all product of beliefs, right? कि भाई ये तो non-biological, which doesn't make any sense. So what? And if there has been a concerted effort in this country in the last 11 years to dumb down the population and make it more and more unscientific, because a scientific population always asks questions, and they don't want questions. So making the population more and more unscientific works in the favor of power, and that's how when we talk about separation of church and state, it's there in theory, but state needs church. Okay, and one last thing that I want to emphasize here, that I am hugely disappointed by a lot of people who come from the so-called liberal ecosystem, and who I have given a lot of credit to humanities in the beginning, but who come from elite universities doing elite humanities courses. But when it comes to science, they start dissing science without even studying science. While throughout their life, they are using everything the science has provided. They are making their decisions based on science and Google Maps and kitna time lag raha hai, kya nahi, everything they are doing. So this is this hypocrisy that while you are using everything, even in this room, everything that we are using is technology which is given to us by science, right? We'll sit here and we'll talk about also this liberal ecosystem. It comes up with nonsense like science gave us the bomb, for example. Science gave us the bomb. In my humble opinion, science gave us a nuclear reaction. We made the bomb. So if you want to अगर आपको अपने घर की दीवार में, if you want to hammer a nail in the wall in your house, I give you a hammer, and you smash your father's head with that hammer, is it the fault of the hammer? So this liberal ecosystem, I was once sitting with a couple of guys who were advocates and everything, and journalists, and there's this one lady who's very well educated, probably in some foreign university, and she says that science cannot answer all the questions. I mean, what kind of a complaint is this? Just please for once go and say this to your parents that you cannot answer all the questions and then see. So this irrational complaint from, because first of all, science did not promise you to answer all your stupid questions. Okay, my problem is these people, they are capable enough. And the kind of stupid questions on which the industry of spirituality is built up is, what is my connection to the universe? What connection? You are blocked by your ex-girlfriend on your WhatsApp. She doesn't have a connection with you. And you want a connection with the universe. So the arrogance and all these people who have been educated in law and journalism and history and political science, they have not, if you ask them what are the three laws of motion of Newton's three laws of motion, they don't know it. And yet they have the audacity to have a very strong opinion against science. One of the most problematic things that I have heard is science is male gaze. There are so few women in science. Is there a problem of science or is there a problem of human society? Why are there so few women as engineers in IIT? Is it a problem of IIT or engineering or anything? It's a societal problem. So my thing is that we all, the hypocrisy, the arrogance, one, that we think that we will, the consciousness and everything will, there will be life after life or whatever. And then this battamizi of educated people who shamelessly use everything that science provides and do not miss a chance to diss science. What is casteism, for example, in India? Casteism is the two human beings, though they are Homo sapiens, but one is inferior. And once you start asking how, as Raza said, you will know the answer. No, they are not. We are the same. But for casteism to survive, and many of such theories to survive, we need an unscientific and questioning population. And that's why it is very, very important for us to, talk vehemently and vociferously about science and the importance of science. That's what.
Thank you so much. That was indeed a very great rhetoric, very good polemic. So, in a lot of ways, Sanjay, as I was trying to say, that we all know, हमको मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल के कुछ रखने को ख्याल अच्छा है. So, in a lot of ways, like the science actually provides you the bedrock upon which you can do great things. Like the same E is equal to mc square gave you nuclear energy, which is now lighting up so many houses, making so many things more accessible and a lot. While at the same time it can be used to kill people. So it's about
human society. Sorry, just one more thing I want to add, that Mr. Raza talked about conservation of momentum. And it's a fair question to ask, why are the laws of the nature the way that they are? Why conservation of momentum is a natural law? It's a fair question. But the thing is that in an observable universe, if you want to find the answers to these questions, you need to follow certain methods. And those methods have been prescribed by science, and why those methods are important, should be used, because we have seen the results of those methods, repetitive results of those methods. We cannot suddenly come up with mystical and metaphysical idea, oh, God made these laws. Then the next natural question is, who made God, as Mr. said? So then they will say, oh, that we don't. Why don't we stop here? We don't know. This happened with Stephen Hawking and Pope. Pope said, you can talk about Big Bang, but don't talk beyond that. Hawking said, why? Because that is God's work. Hawking said, that then who created God? Yeah, that we do. Why don't you just stop here? Big Bang.
all right. Yes, that indeed. I had
Let's take some questions.
Yeah, would be.
Sir, you mentioned as one of the clarity of religion.
Be louder. I've grown old. Yes, I said that I was young at one point of
So
time.
you mentioned in the earlier part as one of the clarity of religion that given every evil and noble things can be justified based on religion. So we can connect that with the science also, because if we look at religion also
You look at
Armenian genocide, Nazi genocide, Rwandan genocide. So everything was justified based upon the science. There's some specific Armenian theories.
I'm not able to
No,
understand.
I'm understanding. So what basically is saying, as you said, that anything can be justified in the name of religion. Similarly, anything can be justified in the name of science, just like Armenian genocide, Nazi genocide, right? But I actually,
Exploitation and the
agree with that.
genocide.
So if the answer is it is if not the problem of science, it's the problem of people, then we can also say the same for religion also. Because even some people doing terrorism, they will say that means there is a counter response to that thing also, because it's not the problem of religion, it's not the problem, it's the problem of people. So basically, then
I
what is the
understood.
difference between
Yeah,
science
I
and
understood.
religion?
I'll also answer this.
The simple thing is that religion is not inward looking endeavor of configuring either society or laws of society and laws of in science. If somebody makes the claim that you just now suggested, then because it is inward looking endeavor of human beings, it will be corrected over a period. If you make a false claim that yeah, genocide is a good thing, then science, within science, people will prove that it's wrong, and people have to be it's wrong. Right? But yeah, right in the beginning of the book, I have given a poem of mine which talks about 14 billion years. And yes, the question he raised that science cannot answer all. I accept it. Because if I love somebody, then science cannot tell me why and how I love somebody. If I like some music or ninth symphony or seventh symphony of Gauhar, somebody, science cannot tell me why I like or why you like or why you dislike. So there are certain questions in society. For example, whether you are for war, or you stand with Israel, or you stand with Palestine, or you hate somebody and you are for caste system and you are against caste system, science cannot answer this. Why nature has created you on planet Earth, this speck which is smaller than probably a grain in the entire universe, why it is created. That question you have to answer. And each individual has to answer that question. Whether you stand with non-violence, whether you stand with curiosity, whether you stand with scientific endeavor, or with science and scientific temper, or you hate people, you believe that yeah, पांच कव्य में आप क्या research होगी? There is something very novel in पांच कव्य that you have to decide yourself. But science is going to tell you ultimately that yes, genocide in Palestine was wrong for many reasons, including environment.
We take another question. Let's do counter questions over tea later.
I think this whole discourse is centered around science, and we are letting science costly as if we are making apologies and excuses for science. I mean, love, as you said, cannot be explained by science, but it can be because it's biochemistry, just the hormonal reaction and all those neurons and everything coming together. But also, I mean, genocides, for that matter, cannot be explained by science, but it can be because eugenics and all of this are actually rooted in science, and these all came from science. So I feel like in this whole discussion, we've been supporting and being very like apologetic towards science and not calling science for what it is. And I think science should not be centered as much as it is right now. This.
Right.
comments, but can yeah. So because I can't see you from here. So I don't think that either me or Mr. Raza have been an apologist for science. Here right now, what like you gave an example in eugenics. It's again the hammer and the nail example. Okay, I know that if I drop a brick from the rooftop, it will come down with 9.8 meters per second square acceleration in gravity. Okay, and I have this knowledge. Now I bring a person with whom I have beef. Okay, and I ask him to stand down, and I throw that brick on him. The person will obviously subsequently comes. Now, can I say that I'm an apologist for acceleration due to gravity, or acceleration due to gravity is to be blamed for this?
See, there is a problem. Hold on. There is a problem. The problem is that in order to hammer science, most of the time we use, or almost 100%, examples that are given are from technology.
Yeah.
Right? The book also draws a line between science and technology. I am talking about science, and Sanjay is also talking about science, and trying to tell you that there is a difference. The moment you switch over from science to technology, then economics and politics both take over. Therefore, when the Manhattan Project was still going on and they first time exploded the bomb, most of the scientists wrote a letter to Roosevelt saying that this should never ever be used. It was politics and it was economics that was responsible for ultimately making the bombs, and that you see on daily basis. Or E is equal to mc squared doesn't harm you. That is knowledge, that is science. The other point, can I make another point? That the relationship with the society is extremely important to understand. In a deeply religious society in Indian subcontinent, whether you take it Pakistan or you talk about India or you talk about Bangladesh or Nepal, these are deeply religious societies. What happens when you open your eyes in the morning in a normal house? Somebody is praying, नमाज पढ़ रहे होंगे, कुरान खानी हो रही होगी, दिया जला रहे होंगे, भजन हो रहा होगा, मोमबत्ती जला, something. You can't travel to your school without seeing a mandir masjid. Then you come back, again this thing is repeated, and within a school you have interaction with science for maybe for 45 minutes, your science का period. And then you go to the market, आपकी दुकान के अंदर कुछ ना कुछ रखा हुआ होगा, hospital जाइए रखा होगा. We were promised that privatization will bring a new culture, and I see every hospital that is private, every doctor that is sitting in a clinic has some religious symbol displayed there. You go to even science labs, and most of the time you must be visiting here and there in IIT. You will see religious symbols. Have you seen any scientific symbol in a mosque or a temple? मतलब नहीं लगाइए आप न्यूटन की स्टैचू वहां पर, आप सीवी रमन की लगा लीजिए, चलिए बहुत हिंदुस्तानी यहाँ नहीं. So there is a continuous bombardment of religious messages, and each religious message has a relationship with some dogma, faith, or superstition. So it's a skewed society in which science is on the receiving end, and therefore we are not apologists for science. We are trying to understand what is the relationship between science in a deeply religious society.
And also trying to give science its due credit, which is have again and again taken away from it, because see, nuclear reaction was science, bomb was technology. Easy to, as I said, easy to MCSK doesn't harm anyone. What science it was, science was able to find that easy to MC2. Now what you do with it is politics and economics. That's a human.
One more from me, add a small point. Now, a lot of admonition towards science stems from this supposed bifurcation that we have to have within the pursuit of knowledge between the STEM and the humanities and social sciences. In that regard, I would, if I may, urge you to read John Dewey's Social as a Category, as a paper, as to how within all domains of knowledge, there is the aspect that is socially accepted is like how what category social really is, how we are associated together. And I think yes, economics and politics, but also there is megalomania. The things that like especially in case with the bomb, as we have used that example a lot. There is an aspect of megalomania. There is an aspect of degradation or humiliation, and people, this sadist masochism about the world around and like taking revenge and all. These are things that we are not discussing. And as well, I mean, ask.
Hi, I wanted to ask about like one of the things which really affected me is like your research on Allahabad Kumbh Mela and Ardh Kumbh. The when you say that the cultural distance between humans or Indian people and cosmology has reduced, it every time I read it, I feel like it's a I can't believe this. And I mean, and how do you see that research now? Because it has been 25 years since.
Yeah, I started writing that book on my experience of Kumbh Mela, and I've been there, attended all Kumbh Mela till the last one. The last one, like bomb was taken over by, that knowledge was taken over by politics. Now Kumbh Mela is also taken over by politics. So I couldn't go there. See, that is data. The data shows you very clearly that Indian society is moving towards higher level of scientific knowledge. And the belief in superstition is reducing over a period of time. Now, I can't do anything about it because data is telling you that. Though television tells you something very different, the politicians tell you something very different. And most of the people who have not collected data, any data, will tell you, yes, Indian society is going through a transition which is taking it backwards. And more people now believe in superstition. It is not happening. When you go to the lowest level of the startup society, no, it is not happening. And that is where the hope lies. Probably. Indian society and Indian subcontinent probably has great respect for knowledge. I haven't encountered any society like this anywhere in the world where the poorest of the poor wants their sons and daughters to go to the best of their and seek knowledge. And this population is the knowledge hungry. And it is we sitting here, the privileged ones, who have failed. My generation has failed. There is a cognitive gap which is getting created when people are moving from their villages where explanations to these questions were very simple. Now those explanations also are lost when they move to cities. And this is exactly where the most regressive political formations move in. and fill in that cognitive gap. But that is a political process. And it's your and my generation who has a responsibility towards those who are not so privileged. Most of my class fellows have gone abroad. It's only Professor Bhim Singh and I were left in India. He was my classmate. Professor Bhim Singh, you must have. In electrical. So we were classmates. Everybody else left the country. So our generation failed to reach out to people. We were privileged. And how privileged we were, you can't even imagine, as compared to you. Because you are spending money, we were getting money for getting into our study.
And it's not that scientists have not tried hard to keep science away from politics and not fall in the wrong hands, just like with the bomb, as you said. After the explosion, I mean, Bridget Feynman, Bohr, and not Bohr, but Oppenheimer, have you watched the films? They were all disgusted about what we have done. And I want to tell a very interesting story, just 2 minutes. Werner Heisenberg, the man who gave the uncertainty principle, he was a German scientist during Nazi Germany. And the Nazis were forced, they made him head of the atomic bomb project, Heisenberg. And he was a brilliant mind of his times. And he knew that if this nuclear reaction, this science comes in the hands of Nazis, this will be the end of the world. And he deliberately delayed the bomb that Nazis wanted to make so that the Allies made it first.
He didn't lead the project, he misled the project.
He misled the project. He did not let the bomb be made. And when the Americans made it, the Allied forces dropped they made the bomb. And then when Germany was taken over, he became the chief, information giver to the Allied forces. He was leading them to the nuclear reactors and other places for them to destroy it. So it's not that scientists also realize this this real fear of politics taking over science and using it to destroy humanity. They have tried, but ultimately in this world, politics always wins. And the only way we can create a balance, we can, give science its due place, so that we take full advantage of the scientific way of thinking and living, is when we start asking questions. Only then we will be able to give science its due. And by science, I don't mean that your mathematics or trigonometry or calculus or all these things. The simple act of asking question. Imagine before all this modern science was not in place, when these laws of Newton were not in place, quantum mechanics to the 20th century में आए. Even before all of these postulated laws, there was science, because science is a way of thinking. Somebody was asking the questions, and that's why that somebody led us to these laws and these ways of science. And who knows, in the next 200, 300 years, where does these questions lead us?
This reminds me of Nazir Akbar Abadi's nazam called Adminama. I would urge you all to read it if you can find time. Yeah, more questions? There was some. I'm glad that there are a lot of questions. So I hope you guys don't mind if this discussion lasts longer.
Louder,
It's
please.
the same when you talk about eugenics. When science talk about something is the truth in capital letters. Truth is something when you say that science talks about truth, and truth is powerful. Hence you can deduce a statement. Science is powerful. Then it becomes problematic. And I think that is how people who talk about eugenics and things like that, they preach it. And now you cannot actually distinguish science, logic, and politics and STEM and arts apart. They are conglomerated.
I would just like to add on to this. Yeah, I think what we are doing is we are making a category error, because we are talking about science in a way of thinking wise, while we are categorizing religion religion as an institutional thing. When we are talking about religion versus science here, mostly what we have done today is we have characterized science as a way of thinking, while we have characterized religion as the institutionalized form of religion. If we begin to talk about religion in terms of also a way of thinking, I don't think these differences hold anymore.
Okay. Can we group a bunch of questions and then we can
Forget the question. So you can keep a tab of that. Then I can.
I'm not ready. But yeah, could you please respond to this question and then we can like both the questions.
I just want to add to what you say, like
Yeah.
the comparison that you make between religion and science, is it a valid comparison at all to me? Because religion, as we understand, is a lot the metaphysics, the epistemology, all of it is different for both science and religion. So to call the superstructure of religion and science is having certain similarities and comparative, will it be the same kind of mistake that you're positing when you say that there are certain wrong?
Under the right coordinate, everything's possible.
I very deliberately did not use the word truth. I don't know whether you realize that or not, except for while talking about Al-Hasan. And I was quoting him. In science, there is no final truth. In science, scientific method is as important as the claim. Unless and until you also describe the methodology that you have used to arrive at certain results, you will not get PhD. Right? So in science, method is extremely important part of the claim. Normally what reaches people is only the claim and the conclusion. So there is a problem. Right? Which creates cognitive dissonance with half-baked methodology reaching at times. They don't have wherewithal to observe galaxies, etc. They can't. They can't operate any of these machines which you operate very in a normal environment in IIT. They don't have that. So there is a problem there. Now, coming to your question or comment, see, I was very again conscious that one must focus on the other and find similarities and dissimilarities. As an institution, science is extremely dissimilar compared to religion, and religion as one can. Right? We know it they are different. But philosophy, the questions they ask are different.
Yeah,
Right? So once the questions they ask are different, then you have to take a decision as a human being on planet Earth that which route to follow to arrive at a conclusion. Right? I have no problems if you have faith.
I personally am
No, no, no.
It's just
No, I'm saying that if somebody has faith in something, and there is a difference between faith and belief. I believe that I'm sitting here, but I don't have faith that God has set me. Right? So there is a problem with faith as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm not treating religion as an institution.
No, I'm not talking about the book. I'm talking about today's discussion.
No, even today's discussion, the two examples out of 29 that are there given in the book, which I have identified as difference between I gave you, none of them is treated as an institution. I don't treat it as just as an institution. Institution-wise, they are different. We know it. Each one of us experiences it every day. That how different going to a temple or a mosque is as compared to going to a lab. Of course, there's no problem.
So, I appreciate the discussion that has been going on. My question here is actually, so it seems like you do not believe. I mean, to go back to your question, I'm just looking at it. So there's two stages of humanity through the journey of knowledge, and there's the positing of religion and then science. So are you categorizing them in those two, in that gradable scale, or is it that you hold a different opinion?
Understood correctly. Can you repeat the question?
She's trying to say that in certain way there is an epistemic break of sorts. We can like until a certain point there is dark ages.
Okay. Fine. See, I think that the moment human beings have tried very hard to find answer to this question, that when did Homo sapiens started asking questions and seeking answers. And I have to scan and talk to some of the most brilliant minds in their own fields. Right from linguistics to evolutionary biology and cognitive science, etc. Paleontology. But answer to this question, I'm yet to receive a satisfactory answer. So one doesn't know when we started asking questions. But the day humanity learned to ask a question that began with how, science has started. That is what I mean. And therefore, my conclusion is that these categories of Islamic science, Western science, Vedic science, Chinese science are political categories. They are not scientific or academic. Science is space and time frame. It doesn't change with space. It doesn't change with time. It may change with time, but it doesn't change with. The only thing I'll add to it is that in science also, the conclusions have changed over a period. Right? In religion, once the religion became codified, they didn't change. It was frozen knowledge. And the oldest scripture in religion is the most sacred one, which gives you all the answers. And in science, what has come, what is latest, is the best and closest to them.
If I may add a little bit to this, a question that you asked, like, when does human beings start asking questions? There's a very interesting anthropologist, I'm forgetting their name, but he's given an answer to this. Like, humans became humans. Humans, like, Homo sapiens became human beings when they first tended a wound. So it's very essential, but it's the point of empathy, because you ask, how do you feel? Like, how are you? How do you feel? What are you doing to each other? This is an act of like tending a wound. Is that, and that is perhaps where asking really stems from. It's an intrigue in knowing beyond yourself. At the same time, it does also happen to have susceptibility towards solipsism, that you can, all that there is to know, what self is all there is but can know about. So there is a limitation and there is an arrogance aspect, like which is what most of Sanjay says.
Is a bit romantic idea of transition of Homo sapien to human.
Yeah, this is very poetic. See, Richard Feynman has written a beautiful book, The Pleasure of Finding Things Out. Okay, so the way all of us human beings, as Sir has already discussed, indoctrination जो हमारा when it comes to religion, when a child is born, immediately he's given a religion. Now just flip it. Immediately, if a child is given the principles of science, imagine what that science that person will develop into. And
Would be OCD free.
yeah, yeah. And see, and the most important thing for me about as I explained, the difference between religion and science is that science corrects itself. The, the moment it knows more, it accepts that, oh no. I was like, for example, the most glaring example is Newtonian mechanics. Okay, we all studied Newtonian mechanics in school, but the moment the black body radiation experiment happened, quantum mechanical model of the universe came into picture, it did it physics corrected itself. Earlier, Newtonian mechanics was about cause and effect. That means the future was predictable. Okay, but quantum mechanics came to the idea that we cannot measure, position and momentum at the same time accurately. So science changed, but the fact is that even while changing, the Newtonian mechanics was not totally dismissed. Quantum mechanics encapsulated Newtonian mechanics. So on macroscopic world, Newtonian mechanics works perfectly fine for all of us. But it's at the galactic level or the microscopic world level that quantum mechanics, is more useful in explaining the phenomena. So this ability to correct itself by knowing more is unique to science, whereas in religion, by knowing less, you make sure that you confirm with the dogmas.
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था
Make it the last questions, 1.5
is religion is not something apart from belief, faith, or dogma, or so religion is something else. I mean, for me, religion is something else from stories, from dogma, from faith, from rituals, from tradition. So I just want to ask that is religion is something else apart from all this?
No, religion is just a story only. It's an entertaining story.
No, but if we see in the history of religion, we see that religion is also the part of the question and answer tradition. If we see, if we let's take Upanishads, if we take all of the Buddhism, so they are all the part of the question answer tradition. उसमें ये नहीं बता दिया जाता, फाइनल आंसर नहीं बता दिया जाता. They can't answer the final answer.
Religion, it is very close to what he raised, the issue of institutionalization of religion. What institutionalization has done is that religion has two parts. One is core, which is philosophy of religion, and the other one is the periphery, which is probably the whole paraphernalia and dogmas and rituals, etc. So if you're talking about the core, then it does satisfy certain needs of human beings, and this is exactly why it has survived for such a long. The other thing is that it's elegant, flexible. The moment you say there is a God, the moment you say या मरने जीने में एक आत्मा होती है, बाहर निकलती है, तो मर जाते हैं. These are conceptual models which are simple, which are elegant, where over a period of time you could add any element, reduce something, then again add something else, and it will keep on explaining in a simplistic manner. Whereas for science, it becomes a problem. You have to have a systematic method and tell people and declare that this is how I have arrived at certain conclusions. Here you don't have. So, even in the core of the religion, where we talk about philosophy, spiritualism, etc., it's a matter of faith. And then, even there, the questions asked begin with why and answered accordingly. And the logic is very simple, elegant, beautiful, flexible, but no, it's different from science. You can choose.
So, from my point of view, maybe those both science and religion are very apart from each other. They try to give answer from very different to from two different what they want to answer, like religion is something that is inner something. Why human think, why human do something. So these are the field of religion. If you
तो
ask,
सर ने ऑलरेडी बोला था कि रिलीजन साइंस इसका आंसर नहीं दे सकता व्हाई आई लव समवन, ठीक है, बट रिलीजन भी नहीं दे सकता. वेयर इज द एविडेंस?
मतलब मुझे फैज अहमद फैज क्यों पसंद है, गालिब क्यों पसंद है, इन्होंने शेर पढ़ा अभी, वो अच्छा शेर लगा या बुरा शेर लगा, कोई एक्सप्लेनेशन.
बिकॉज वी लिव आवर लाइफ थ्रू एविडेंस, दैट्स व्हाट आई सेड.
Why we look out for evidence?
So if you go to a court,
Yes, you talked about the meaning, right? Why we don't, if we look about the meaning. So
Yeah.
basically we can
Another question?
same way about the evidence.
Sanjay sir, could we do that? We take another question.
So you mentioned Popper. So how far do you agree with his view that a scientific theory, this criterion of falsifiability with the scientific theory? Because on the other side of the debate, we see that Kuhn and I think Imre Lakatos also do not agree with this.
See, this is exactly what I was saying, and I have also talked about it, that once you have a definition from within science, then at different points of time, these philosophers have looked at science from different perspectives. So Popper looks at it from one perspective. Right? So falsifiability adds to your understanding of how science works. Similarly, when we talk about Kuhn, how science works, he explains from a very different perspective. But these are not complete definitions. And therefore, I personally had to think of the other. None of these, right from Aristotle or Buddha to Kuhn, or even Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who is given a beautiful definition of scientific temper. You must read Discovery of India, where he devotes 10 pages, about 10 pages to science. And that has always baffled me, that how come a thorough politician who was never trained in science, beyond tripos, is talking about scientific temper so elegantly and so beautifully.
you can be a scientist without studying science. That's, as I said, it's a way of knowing.
Can you
Read
have
his
for
definition.
religion also.
you have more questions?
That's
He
what
says scientific temper is temper of a free man. Now this is a beautiful definition of scientific temper. You can't be free unless you are scientifically tempered. And you can't be scientifically tempered unless you are free human being. He's a big thinker, which India has.
But Nehru also, at different times of his life, he also believed in different things. You also see his brush with, religion as time progresses.
But that's a comment about Nehru, not science.
No, see, he mentioned.
I make the best scientist in the
Don't
world.
collate art and the artist together. There is 10 pages he wrote very well. Rest of the book might not do. But anyways, but I am very glad this but I'm very glad this book apparently made us all think. Like Gauhar Sahab's labor has bore fruit, in my opinion, that we have been able to talk and discuss at great lengths very amicably, very peacefully, with a lot of respect and humility towards each other's opinions, and at the same time, learning new things and uh, flattening out our understanding. And I hope as you proceed further on with your discussion and promote your book, more of such questions crop up, more people, these questions are then spread to more people, and then we are able to have more discussions like this. Thank you, all of you, for coming. Thank you, Sanjay sir. Thank you for your great insights and comical rhetorics.
Really funny.
Oh, you can't help it.
Thank
you. Funny to the bones.
You didn't even start.
So we have.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have something for each of you. It's not much. We are completely unfunded, so we have like a token of. We have like a token of appreciation for each of you. So if you could just.
Thanks a lot.
Take pictures. Go.
Take screenshots.